Good evening, and welcome to the first episode of Keith the Storyteller. In this episode, I will be reading from the 1912 edition of Aesop's Fables, which are the world's best known collection of morality tales. This first one is called The Fox and the Goat. A fox fell into a well and was unable to get out again. By and by, a thirsty goat came by, and seeing the fox in the well, asked him if the water was good. "Good?" said the fox. "It's the best water I have ever tasted in all my life. Come down and try it yourself." The goat thought of nothing but the prospect of quenching his thirst, and jumped in at once. When he had enough to drink, he looked about, like the fox, for some way of getting out, but could find none. Presently, the fox said, "I have an idea. You stand on your hind legs and plant your forelegs firmly against the side of the well, and then I'll climb on your back, and from there, by stepping on your horns, I can get out, and when I'm out, I'll help you too." The goat did as he was requested, and the fox climbed onto his back and so out of the well. And then he coolly walked away. The goat called loudly after him and reminded him of his promise to help him out. But the fox merely turned and said, "If you had as much sense in your head as you have hair in your beard, you wouldn't have got into the well without making certain that you could get out again." That's a messed up fox. But the moral of the story is to look before you leap. The second story for this evening is called The Old Lion. A lion, enfeebled by age and no longer able to procure food for himself by force, determined to do so by cunning. Betaking himself to a cave, he lay down inside and feigned to be sick. And whenever any of the other animals entered to inquire after his health, he sprang upon them and devoured them. Many lost their lives this way, until one day a fox called at the cave, and, having a suspicion of the truth, addressed the lion from outside instead of going in, and asked him how he did. He replied that he was in a very bad way. "But," he said, "why do you stand outside? Pray come in." "I should have done so," answered the fox, "if I hadn't noticed that all the footprints point towards the cave and none the other way." The fox is a very cunning creature. The moral of this story is, he is wise who is warned by the misfortune of others. The third story for tonight's episode is called The Lion and the Mouse. A lion, asleep in his lair, was awoke by a mouse running over his face. Losing his temper, he seized it with his paw and was about to kill it. The mouse, terrified, piteously entreated him to spare its life. "Please let me go," it cried, "and one day I will repay you for your kindness." The idea of so insignificant a creature ever being able to do anything for him amused the lion so much that he laughed aloud and good-humoredly let it go. But the mouse's chance came after all. One day, the lion got entangled in a net which had been spread for game by some hunters, and the mouse heard and recognized his roars of anger and ran to the spot. Without more ado, it set to work to gnaw the ropes with its teeth, and succeeded before long in setting the lion free. "There," said the mouse, "you laughed at me when I promised I would repay you, but now you see, even a mouse can help a lion." The moral of this story is that no one is too small to make a difference. The fourth story on tonight's episode is called The Pomegranate, the Apple Tree, and the Bramble. A pomegranate and an apple tree were disputing about the quality of their fruits, and each claimed that its own was the better of the two. High words passed between them, and a violent quarrel was imminent, when a bramble impudently poked its head out of a neighboring hedge and said, "There, that's enough, my friends. Don't let us quarrel." Now, as short as this story really is, the moral is no less important. Pride and thorns often grow side by side. The fifth story on tonight's episode is called The Flies and the Honeypot. A number of flies were attracted to a jar of honey which had been overturned in a housekeeper's room, and placing their feet in it, ate greedily. Their feet, however, became so smeared with the honey that they could not use their wings, nor release themselves, and were suffocated. Just as they were expiring, they exclaimed, "O foolish creatures that we are! For the sake of a little pleasure, we have destroyed ourselves." The moral of this story is that pleasure bought with pains hurts. The sixth and final story on tonight's episode is called The Grasshopper and the Ants. One fine day in winter, some ants were busy drying their store of corn, which had got rather damp during a long spell of rain. Presently up came a grasshopper and begged them to spare her a few grains. "For," she said, "I'm simply starving." The ants stopped work for a moment, though this was against their principles. "May we ask," said they, "what you were doing with yourself all last summer? Why didn't you collect a store of food for the winter?" "The fact is," replied the grasshopper, "I was so busy singing that I hadn't the time." "If you spent the summer singing," replied the ants, "you can't do better than spend the winter dancing." And they chuckled and went on with their work. Now, the moral of this story is that seasons change, and so do fortunes. And that concludes the first episode of Keith the Storyteller. Thank you for tuning in tonight, and don't forget to subscribe for notifications on future episodes. I will be uploading episodes daily. I'll see you next time.